Have you ever noticed how every time you think you've got the Alien franchise figured out, it slips right through your fingers like acid blood eating through steel?
Yeah, me too.
And today, I need to tell you something that changes everything you thought you knew about Alien Earth. Because in episode 6, the show just dropped the single most dangerous, most shocking, most forbidden tease of the season so far, and barely anyone is talking about it. I'm James Roxer, this is BRAKOWN, and let's get right into it. Because trust me, once you see what's really going on with Wendy and the Xenomorphs, you won't watch Alien the same way again. Now, you already know Alien Earth is the most daring prequel this franchise has attempted. FX, Disney, Ridley Scott. They all promised something bigger, something darker. But what they didn't tell us, they've been hiding a queen in plain sight. And not just a queen, something far more dangerous. And I have to ask, did you catch it? Did you see the line, the look, the way Wendy defended the creatures? Because if you blinked, you missed it. Episode 6 didn't just show us Wendy's connection to the Xenomorphs. It confirms she's not just a victim of Prodigy's twisted experiments. She's becoming something else. Something we haven't seen in live action since the Dark Horse comics. Think about this, Wendy doesn't just understand the Xenomorph language. She feels them. She bleeds with them. She empathizes with them. In her own words, she doesn't even want to be people anymore. Why? Because people kill for no reason. That's not just an emotional outburst, it's a rejection of humanity itself. And if you know the Alien comics, your alarm bells should already be going off. Because this storyline, it mirrors one of the most forbidden characters in Alien lore, Eloise. And if you don't know Eloise, buckle up. She was an experiment, part synthetic, part infused with DNA from a Xenomorph Queen. Sounds insane, right? But the result was terrifying. Eloise wasn't just a hybrid. She could control Xenomorphs, communicate with them telepathically. And the brood obeyed her because the Queen's DNA made them subservient. She loved them. She protected them. She led them. Now compare that to Wendy. The empathy, the language, the bond, her pain when a facehugger was tortured in front of her. Tell me that doesn't sound like Eloise 2.0. And here's where the problem starts. The pain point, the controversy. Alien Earth was supposed to be a return to basics. Back to the raw horror of 1979, the terror of being trapped with an unstoppable predator. But instead, episode 6 just gave us something bigger, more operatic. A living bridge between humanity and the hive, a queen without a throne. So let me ask you this. What happens if Wendy stops being the audience surrogate, the girl caught in the experiment, and becomes the new mother of the species? Is she going to be the only one who can save humanity from an outbreak, or the very reason Earth falls? Because that's the loop Alien Earth just trapped us in. And here's the kicker, this isn't just theory. The show has already told us where it's going. If you know where to look, check this. The finale's episode title is The Real Monsters. You think that's about the Xenomorphs. Wrong. It's about us, humans. Because from Wendy's perspective, it's not the aliens that are monstrous, it's the scientists, the corporations, the people who play God. And that lines up perfectly with Eloise's arc from the comics. But let me hold the mirror up to you. If you were in Wendy's place, if you felt every scream, every shred of pain the Xenomorphs endured, would you still side with humanity? Or would you start to think maybe, just maybe, the monsters we've feared for decades aren't the real monsters at all? That's the question Alien Earth wants you to wrestle with. And it's why this reveal isn't just shocking. It's dangerous, because it changes the way you view every chestburster, every facehugger, every hive. It's not just nature red in tooth and claw anymore, it's family. And if you're new here, this is exactly what we do on BRAKOWN. We pull back the curtain, we dig into the secrets the franchise doesn't want you to see, we expose the forbidden knowledge hiding between the frames. If you don't want to miss the truth about Alien Earth's final episodes, you need to hit that subscribe button right now. Don't wait. Alright, let's break deeper. Because Wendy's path is starting to look inevitable. And when you line up the dots, her rejection of humanity, her growing bond with the creatures, her ability to speak their language, it only leads to one conclusion. Wendy isn't just a character anymore, she's a crown. And every crown needs a kingdom. Now I can already hear you saying, James, you're crazy. The show would never go that far. But let me remind you, this is the same franchise that once gave us Ripley 8, a half human, half Xenomorph clone who bonded with a newborn monstrosity. And compared to Wendy, Ripley 8 looks tame. Ripley didn't have control. Ripley didn't have language. Wendy does. And that's where things get terrifying, because episode 6 also introduced another ticking time bomb, Arthur Sylvia's impregnation. You know what that means? A Xenomorph is about to hatch on Neverland Island. And when it does, the entire Prodigy operation is at risk of collapsing. Unless, of course, Wendy steps in. But if Wendy steps in, whose side is she on? Humanity or her brood? That's the Razor's Edge Alien Earth just put us on. And we're only going deeper from here. Alright, so let's pull this thread further, because the deeper we go, the more it feels like Alien Earth isn't just teasing a Xenomorph Queen, It's rewriting the very rules of the alien mythos. Think about this carefully. Eloise wasn't just a one-off experiment in the Dark Horse comics. She was a paradigm shift. She represented the nightmare scenario the Wayland, Utanis of the universe, had always dreamed of: an intelligent, controllable queen, a being who could tame the hive without losing herself. And now, Wendy is walking straight into that same forbidden space. But here's the part that almost nobody is talking about. Eloise wasn't really in control. Sure, the brood obeyed her. Sure, she could make them bend. But she was still tied to their instincts, their hunger, their violence. The control was an illusion, because the deeper she connected with them, the less she could separate herself from what they were. That's the curse of being a queen. You don't rule the hive rules you. And that's what episode 6 just hinted at for Wendy. Her empathy isn't a superpower, it's a trap. When she says she doesn't want to be people anymore, that's not a throwaway line, it's foreshadowing. She's already halfway gone. Now let's rewind and set the stage. In Alien Earth, Wendy is supposed to be the heart of the story, the innocent caught in the nightmare, the audience's emotional anchor. But ask yourself this: how many times has Alien used the innocent, only to twist them into something horrifying? Newt was the survivor who couldn't be saved. Ripley was the hero who became a hybrid. Cole was the synthetic who revealed more humanity than the humans. Wendy? She's the evolution of that archetype. She's the next iteration of the franchise's cruelest tradition, the corruption of innocence. And that's where the theory sharpens. Because if Wendy is Eloise, or at least inspired by Eloise, then Alien Earth is planting seeds for something the films never dared to do in live action. A queen who chooses the hive, not by force, not by cloning, but by love. A queen who isn't just feared, but who believes in the Xenomorphs' right to exist. Imagine what that does to the story. We've spent decades terrified of Xenomorphs because they're mindless, merciless predators. But Wendy, she changes the narrative. Through her, we're being asked to empathize with the apex predator, to stop seeing them as the monsters in the dark and start seeing them as victims, creatures ripped from their home, enslaved by science, tortured by men in suits. And I'll be real with you, that's not just bold writing, that's dangerous writing. Because once you humanize the hive, once you give them a voice through Wendy, how do you ever go back? How do you ever watch Alien again and see the Xenomorph as pure evil? Here's where I want to throw this question at you. Do you think Alien loses its edge if the monsters stop being monsters? Or does it become even scarier because now you're forced to question whether humanity deserves survival in the first place? Drop your take in the comments. I want to know which side you're on, because trust me, this debate is about to explode in the fandom. And speaking of debates, remember in one of my past videos where I said Alien Earth was hiding its true villain in plain sight? Yeah, episode 6 just proved it. The villains aren't the Xenomorphs, they're the people. Hermit, Dame Sylvia, Boy Cavalier, the Prodigy Corporation, they're the real monsters. That final title isn't subtle. The show is pointing the finger directly at humanity. Let's zoom in on that for a second. When Wendy defends the chestburster she met as a newborn, saying it could turn out to be good. That's not a naive statement. That's a direct parallel to Eloise insisting her brood weren't evil, they were instinctual. They hunted because that's what they were born to do, and she loved them for it. That's what Wendy is becoming. The defender, the advocate, the voice of the hive. Now, here's where I'll roast myself for a second. I remember watching Alien Resurrection years ago and thinking, okay, Ripley 8 bonding with a newborn monstrosity is the weirdest the franchise will ever get. And now, I was wrong. So wrong. Because Wendy makes Ripley 8 look like a warm-up act. Ripley didn't have language. Ripley didn't empathize with their pain. Wendy is operating on a whole different frequency. But that raises another terrifying hypothetical. If Wendy becomes queen, who does she rule over? Just the island hive? Or all of Earth? Because remember, the show is called Alien Earth, not Alien Island, not Alien Lab. The stakes aren't small. If Wendy sides with the Xenomorphs, and if her empathy evolves into control, then Earth itself becomes the hive. And that would mean, for the first time ever, humanity isn't just under attack from the outside, it's being replaced from within. And here's where I need to loop this back to you again. Picture this, you're Wendy. You're half synthetic caught between worlds, treated like an experiment by humans, and yet you feel every scream of the creatures they torture. Which side do you pick? Do you protect humanity out of loyalty? Or do you crown yourself queen and let the hive inherit the Earth? That's the nightmare question episode 6 leaves us with. And honestly, I don't think the show is going to give us an easy answer. Now, mid-video, let's check the pulse. I want to throw a quick poll to you guys. If Wendy does become the new queen, do you think she'll be humanity's savior or its destroyer? Comment below, type savior. If you think she'll stop the outbreak, type queen. If you think she's going full Eloise and embracing the hive, I'll pin the best arguments in the comments. But while you think about that, let's dig deeper into the mechanics. Because if Alien Earth is really following the Eloise blueprint, then we already know what's coming. Eloise didn't just empathize with the hive she commanded them, they bent to her will. And that's exactly what Wendy might discover in the final episodes. And here's the forbidden knowledge, something the show hasn't told you yet, but the comics make clear. A queen bond doesn't just give you control, it gives you responsibility. The hive's survival becomes your survival. If Wendy ascends to that role, then humanity's fate is sealed. Either she betrays her new family to save us, or she betrays us to protect them. There's no middle ground. And honestly, that's why Alien Earth is more terrifying than any chestburster jump scare. Because the real horror isn't the Xenomorphs, it's the choice. The impossible, inescapable choice that Wendy has to make. And when the finale hits, don't be surprised if she doesn't pick humanity.